talking about even the regular season, because the Texan season should end in the Super Bowl if you're a true winner. That's what you strive for, baby. That's all you want. Well, we're going to take our first break on the Sports Parade Magazine podcast, and when we come back, we'll break down the San Francisco 49er Green Bay Packers game. Right after we pay some bills.
Hey, look at T.I. Ballin' in the V.I. Bunch of bad raw with them looking like a Leo. We just pull up, hop out, go in, show out. Buy the whole bar, pop bottles, go hard. This club so packed. These girls so drunk, this club so packed. These girls so drunk, this club so packed. These girls so drunk. I got them out, got my money and I start ball, 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 ball. I got them out, got my money and I start bad draws and they can't play. Okay, it must be cause it ain't rappers out, but ain't nothing wrong. Hey, look at T.I. Ballin' in the V.I. Bunch of bad draws with them looking like a Leo. We just pull up, hop out, go in, show out. Buy the whole bar, pop bottles, go hard. This club so packed. This club so drunk, this club so packed.
Welcome back to the Sports Parade Magazine Daily Podcast. I'm your host, your boy, the bar with the New Orleans accent, Mark Clark, publishing editor of Sports Parade Magazine. We want you to give us a call, 713-553-6370. Email me, markclark@sportsparademagazine.com, or as always, follow me on Twitter, @MarksWord or @SportsParadeMag. And remember, if you don't have access to your smartphone, the Sports Parade Magazine app, or iTunes, or your computer, no problem. Any phone, work phone, landline, simply dial 619-550-0516 and at the prompt enter the number 4. 619-550-0516 and at the prompt enter the number 4. And guess what? You got America's fastest growing podcast, the Sports Parade Magazine podcast, 24/7 in the comfort of your own home. Well, back to the NFL. San Francisco 49ers. I tell you what, they were impressive in beating the Green Bay Packers. Was it a surprise? Not really. The Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, I think they've had a bit of a big head. I think ego, and particularly among Green Bay's quarterback Aaron Rodgers, I think has played a big part in why they haven't been successful the past 2 years. And when I say successful, like I said, I'm talking about the ultimate prize, the Super Bowl. I'm not talking about regular season success. I'm not talking about division crowns. I'm talking about the big dog. Like they say, put your big boy pants on. And I think they've done too much talk in Green Bay after their Super Bowl victory a couple of years ago. It's all been like preordained that they're going to be the favorite every year, and that Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback. Well, guess what? It hasn't played out that way. And the defense is in dire need of an overhaul in Green Bay. It's getting long in the tooth at some positions, and simply, particularly cornerback with Woodson, but simply that it's not good enough to stop people. You can't give up 30 and 40 points consistently and expect to honestly contend for a Super Bowl. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen on any level. You can't continue to go down that road and somehow mythically, magically, it's going to work out for you. For one thing, Green Bay is not that prolific of an offense. And then I'll tell you another player that was really preoccupied. Yes, Greg Jennings had injuries throughout the year, but Greg Jennings dropped in what's his contract year a huge potential touchdown. Just dropped it right in his hands. And if your star player, a guy that you're already playing millions, a guy that wants to be the franchise player, that wants to be the man, that wants to be a Megatron, a Larry Fitzgerald, show up and do it. Another guy, too many commercials. You saw Greg Jennings most of this year in commercials. Too much of that preordained thing, like I was talking about the Texans. Just preordained that they're going to be the champs. Didn't work out. They were beaten mentally, physically, any which way but loose by the San Francisco 49ers. And let me tell you something. I got to just say it. Colin Kaepernick, quarterback. Colin Kaepernick ran for 180 yards. 181 yards. You heard me. The quarterback ran for 181 yards. Passed for another 264. The 181 yards was an NFL record. Not for the playoffs for a quarterback, but for any game in NFL history. That's how good and how lethal and how dominant Colin Kaepernick was. A guy that, let's face it, Jim Harbaugh made that call. Alex Smith was the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers that made it to the conference championship, one step away from the Super Bowl last year. Still productive this year. Slight concussion, but it gave him the reason, and that slight concussion was Alex Smith early in the year, gave him the reason to replace him with Colin Kaepernick, a guy that Coach Harbaugh saw had more talent, more natural ability, more lethal ability at the quarterback position than Alex Smith possessed in his little finger. And he knew that if they were going to actually get over that proverbial hump and that actual hump and get beyond that championship game to the Super Bowl, they needed Colin Kaepernick. And next week, they're going to the Georgia Dome. And Falcon fans, you better have your big boy pants on, because guess what? This is a bad, bad boy. And speaking of the Falcons, you know when you pre-analyze this game, next week in the Georgia Dome, the Falcons have had trouble against a guy like that. 2 games in the division this year for the Falcons. Carolina, both games, lost one, won one. Quarterback ran wild against the Falcons defense. Just ran wild. So now you're facing arguably the best guy from the quarterback position running the ball in Colin Kaepernick. 181 yards. 181 yards. That's going to be a tough. Because if Cam Newton in Carolina, Cam ran for over 100 yards, over 120 yards, and pinning that loss on the Falcons. And even in losing the other game to the Falcons, he went for over 80 yards running. When you have that type of ability, and Kaepernick is a faster version of a Cam Newton and more accurate and lethal of a passer, that's tough. That's going to be a tough task. Not impossible, but tough. They're going to have to be prepared for that. Also, given the fact that they have struggled, like I said, against Cam Newton in those 2 games. One a loss and one a victory. But this kid, he's proven it. There's no 1A and 1B starting quarterback in San Francisco. He is the man. Got off to a rocky start, threw an interception, but after those jitters settled down, he just was dominant. And the 49ers beat down Green Bay. This game was not as close as the final score would indicate. And if you took that interception, that pick 6 that he had, take that off the board, it was even more impressive, the performance. The 49ers secondary, we talked about this when they beat my New Orleans Saints last year in the playoffs. We talked about how physical these guys can hit and they can defend. Either way, pass or run. That's going to help them going up against Atlanta with Julio Jones, Roddy White. That's going to really help them. And let me tell you something. Roddy White has to step it up. Julio Jones has been the stud in Atlanta. Roddy White has taken a step back with the immersion of Julio Jones. Still very good, but you got to be more than very good, particularly in the playoffs. And let me tell you, the 49ers defensive front, even though they've had injuries and are not as good as they were from a purely physical standpoint, Not as good as they were from a purely physical standpoint. I'm talking about the 49ers. They're still better than most teams left in the playoffs on that defensive front. And with Kaepernick, if he's able to produce just 80% or 90% of what he did, just 80 or 90% of what he did, particularly protecting the ball after that first turnover, it's going to be a long day. But as for discount double check, Aaron Rodgers, get your act together, baby. Get your act together. Like the Houston Texans, you're nothing but a chicken dinner, baby. Nothing but a chicken dinner. Okay, we're going to take another break on the Sports Parade Magazine Daily Podcast on Monday, January 14, 2013. Pay some bills, and when we come back, we'll talk some more about the Atlanta Falcons and then the Baltimore Ravens.
Like a frog, ride it like a horse. I throw that like darts. Drink all muddy, flag all bloody. I'm killing these hoes like Ted Bundy. I'm a good looking rapper, I ain't trying to stunt. I'm a fighter, my fight like Donald Trump. Killing niggas, stick his kid in your back, son. This club so bad, these girls so bad, this club so bad, these girls so drunk, this club so bad, these girls so drunk. I got 'em all, and it's just a dog. A lot of rappers out, but ain't none near raw. They like, hey, look at T.I. Ballin' in the V.I. Bunch of bad raw with them looking like a Leo. We just pull up, hop out, go in, show out. Buy the whole bar, pop bottles, go hard. These girls so packed. These girls so packed. These girls so packed. These girls so packed.
Welcome back to the Sports Parade Magazine Daily Podcast, Monday, January 14th, 2030. It's your boy, the man with the New Orleans accent, the man that gives it to you straight with no chaser, baby, Mark Clark, publishing editor of Sports Parade Magazine. We want you to give us a call, 713-553-6370, 713-553-6370. Email me, markclark@sportsparademagazine.com, or follow me on Twitter, @MarksWord or @SportsParadeMag. And remember, if you don't have the Sports Parade Magazine podcast app, you don't have iTunes, your smartphone, your computer, don't worry about it. There's so many different ways, one of which, from any phone, landline, or work phone, simply dial 619-550-0516, and at the prompt, enter the number 4, 619-550-0516, and at the prompt, enter the number 4. And guess what? You'll have America's fastest growing podcast, the Sports Parade Magazine Podcast, 24/7 from the comfort of any phone, anywhere in the world. Oh, let's get back to it. The Baltimore Ravens, Ray Lewis, crying on the sidelines. I was crying with him because I thought the Hall of Famer's career was over, done. Peyton Manning, that's all we heard of was Peyton Manning. But what's always been a knock on Peyton Manning? He's a Hall of Famer, without a doubt, without question. But the knock has always been that this was a guy in Peyton Manning that was what? The best regular season quarterback ever in the history of the NFL. But besides one Super Bowl win, not very good, basically mediocre in the playoffs. Well, what happened? Well, let me just say this. It wasn't Peyton Manning's fault. Peyton did throw a late interception in this game, as he was uncharacteristically throwing against his body as he was scrambling, which is something he simply does not do because he's not very athletic. But it is what it is. He threw the interception, and which eventually led to the Baltimore Ravens' victory. But let me just say this. There's no way that this game should have gone down this way. Baltimore basically they were getting beat up in the first part of this game. They were getting beat up offensive-wise by the offensive juggernaut that was Peyton Manning. It was clinical. But the defense of the Broncos simply was not there. Champ Bailey has seen his better days. A guy that that's considered like a stud, a guy that, was brought over years ago to Denver.